Thank you so much. It was like really nice listening to the pitches. So please remember that we have the 50 founders final today at 4:30 as well, just to come to that one. So I will be your host. My name is Jahid. I work with investors at TechChill, and we have a very great panel today, which is called "Entering the Web3 Space: A Guide for Big Brands," which is discussed by Aléksa from DAO today and Artūrs from AirBaltic. So I would like to welcome Aléksa and Artūrs.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Hey everyone, great to be here today. And today we will be talking about brands entering Web3. We'll be discussing some of the steps that the Web2 brands can take to get into the industry, as well as some of the challenges they might face. First, I would like to welcome Artūrs. It's amazing to be here with you. Could you please tell us a bit about yourself and what's your involvement in the industry?
Yes, it was nice and a pleasure to be here with you also. We just met in real life now, first time in TechChill. About myself, I'm a Web3 project lead in AirBaltic. So basically, whoever heard about cryptos, NFTs, and all of that stuff. So that's what we're also doing in our airline company, and bringing new cool features that actually work and give some benefits for the customers and the company itself.
Awesome. Yeah, your project is really awesome, and I'm looking forward to discussing that in a bit more detail. But before we get to that, I would like to hear from you, from your personal experience from working with different projects and brands. What are some of the initial steps Web2 brands can take to get into Web3?
Well, there's few of them. We have seen already some of the, let's say, experiences from these brands, right? We had Pepsi coming in with these mic drops and few others, Porsche, Dolce Gabbana, literally everyone. But the big thing is value proposition, right? So one thing is, hey, yes, we're gonna, let's say, have an NFT collection where you're gonna be getting X, Y, and Z, but you don't really know what you're gonna be getting, right? So at the end of the day, if you're not gonna be putting some value for the holders, at least as a minimum of experience, or then your product, then it could just come down to a place where it's going to be a big PR damage, because like crypto now is not more of a headlining. Yes, 2 years ago, year ago, everyone was hyping, everyone released all of the things. Every brand was Web3 brand, the big ones. Then now we see that actually the ones who are providing that value for the customers themselves, those are the ones who are staying and seeing, yes, this technology can give not only to the people great stuff, but also to the company itself.
Yeah, you brought up such a great point. Like in 2021 was the boom of NFTs. Everyone was getting into NFTs, hyped up. But what happened is that many projects actually end up being scams and rug pulls, and that gave the industry a really bad name. And I think that like even today we are really struggling to fix that, and the projects really need to work hard, a lot harder than the before, to actually get the people interested in the project, really learning what this Web3 component can bring them and what type of utility it has. So I'm curious to hear your opinion on, because like Web2 and Web3 are very different, right? So when we talk about Web2, the business, the profit, the product that you're building for the consumers kind of like takes the first place. While in Web3, community is the one that is the most important, and building product, building service, building the project around it kind of like comes second. Because if you don't have the community that is interested, then there is not really much of the future. So what would you say, what is the approach the brands need to kind of like change or adjust to grow that Web3 community?
Well, firstly, it's I believe it's more inside of the brand. So the brand itself inside needs to understand that, hey, let's bring the wall down. So if there's always this brand and then you have that consumer, then if you go in Web3, yes, as you mentioned, there's going to be this community. So people want different kind of relationships. People want to meet these people who's creating all of this stuff. People want to be welcomed into different kind of experiences. And that is where you're creating with consumers, the customers, the loyal members, you are creating already different relationships, more closer relationships where you can just go around and you can also get them to your workplaces, give them experience, a tour, whatever. And this is where the person will feel more appreciated with the company, and essentially the customer retention rate for these products will grow because he's feeling more satisfied. Or maybe if he's going to have a choice to choose from these two different products, and that one other one has those close relationships due to community, that is where probably they're going to make that decision better for the ones who's caring a lot more about the loyal members, the community itself. And there's also another big thing about the communities. So what we are also testing now is that every brand has their products, right? So we think, okay, for example, everyone likes to travel to, I don't know, Berlin.
Yeah.
But in reality, there's so many things that we could just not maybe think about. And then when we have a community, they could come up with those suggestions that, hey, we actually want, for example, I don't know, a window seat all the time, right?
Yeah.
And these are the things where we're going to actually have that feedback from the community. And then if there's good enough feedback and there's a lot of people who want something, that is where we could be essentially improving our product that fits a lot better for these customers. And again, then they are more satisfied, and then they come back to the company because they actually got what they wanted. So they can actually change the company from multiple points of view from the community itself.
When it comes to community in Web3, they do really like to be involved and they like to be heard. And having that ability to say like, hey, as you mentioned, like I would love to be able to to always have that window seat, or if I'm traveling to Germany all the time, maybe you can get me a free beer or something at some specific place. And that's something that really when the community feels recognized and then when it's heard, that's actually what builds the loyalty towards the brand, and they want to contribute. And what generally Web3 is struggling with is when the projects were built on the hype in the past years. When the hype went down, the projects just disappeared because there was no actual utility and there was no actual quality of the project and of the product itself. So the community is, okay, well, these are the bad times, but that's perfectly okay because we are building for something. And when you don't have that something, the community just goes. And what, in your opinion, what are some of the benefits or what are the different utilities projects and products can build for the community?
Well, there's so many of them. Let's start with the simplest one. So basically offer your product for, I don't know, a cheaper price, or offer an experience. So for example, let's say Porsche, right? So they release their NFT collection. And what they could do is like, hey, anyone who's holding this loyal member's card could be having a Porsche drive from Sweden to, I don't know, Spain.
Yeah.
And that is that experience, because usually, okay, a lot of people don't own Porsches, right?
Yeah.
But this is where the people could be having that experience to have that ride. And that is where they, of course, usually the biggest part would not be buying a Porsche car, but there would be a part who will. And also we need to take in consideration the PR that people would be making. So essentially you can advertise your company also in different kind of levels, because the people would be sharing those kind of cool stuff, right? Yeah. So if we would color one of the planes as a big tiger, I bet everyone would take a photo with that, right? And that is going to be viral. And these are and also like token gated access. So for example, in our case, essentially we could be having, like you mentioned, to have a beer in Berlin. So if we create an access through Web3 NFTs, so through the tokens, we create an access where, let's say, this pub or this bar or restaurant is working together with us. We exchange the tokens, and then the people who's holding the loyalty cards, they'll be the ones to actually go there and have, I don't know, free beer or whatever else is already set in stone for that to happen. So there's so many different kind of things, of course. And then there's these things that we don't even know what's going to happen. If we look at now at the crypto space, like even we're speaking now, probably there's already a big shift happening now. That's how fast the place is moving. We can see that from our brands in Latvia, in all around the world. Everyone is building something. But again, the question is, what is going to be easy to use?
That's interesting what you said, because of Web3, I come from startup background and things change so fast. and I thought they couldn't be faster. But when I joined Web3, I was like, well, this can get a lot faster. And what's interesting when I talk to people, since I do education and teaching as well, and people are like, well, we cannot learn anything. I was like, of course you cannot learn anything because things are moving so fast that every day there is something new, and it's okay that you don't know, and it's perfectly fine to be like, okay, can someone explain what the hell is going on here? Because it's just impossible to follow everything. There are so many aspects and so many use cases of Web3, and you just cannot be focused on each and every and be completely updated. And earlier what you mentioned for utilities, right? Like generally people do like free stuff and discounts. I'm working with a project where they're basically like they're building a real estate project, and what they got is if you're a member of the DAO, if you're a member of the community, you get like 10% discount to a yoga class of our new member. And what, for example, Starbucks also did, they also have this, you play the game, you play actually the quiz, and you answer the questions about the coffee, you collect stamps, you go on journeys, and you can get either a free coffee or a discount. So that is a great utility, but what do you think are, is that example when you're building really towards a utility, or when you're actually expanding to a new revenue stream?
Well, at some point initially, so one of the big things for brands in Web3 is if we talk about loyalty programs like Starbucks or ours even, it's the new concept of transferable loyalty.
Yeah.
So where essentially if there's a limited class of club, so let's say, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, that is where the loyalty can be transferred, right? It's limited, not everyone can get in. And this is where it's also a benefit for the customers of the brands. Why? Because, for example, I was living in UK for 8 years. Now I moved back to Latvia to work with AirBaltic, and all of my loyalty was gone. Like in cinemas and all of the shops, etc. All of my cards, physical, digital ones, are gone. And now, while I'm here, for example, there's these loyalty programs like Starbucks one where you can just transfer that to someone else because you feel like, okay, I'm not going to be using it or I don't like it, and you can transfer that to someone. Of course, then there's the speculation part where you can sell it to someone. But that's a completely different kind of story. But that possibility where you can share your loyalty is one of the, I do believe in future, that's going to be a very, very big thing because these clubs do get limited. And if they're limited, then you can, of course, as a brand offer a lot more benefits. And then another thing, of course, well, the question is, like, do you want to create that utility or you want to do just a marketing stunt, for example, right? So just headline it out there, hey, yeah, this is one-time offer. But we can see it now. BMW, they had the first experience in Metaverse, right? Yeah. Now they're going to have the 8th. So essentially, it could come to a point where it is an actual revenue stream, either from the secondary market, if you can create that demand for people to actually be willing to buy it off from someone else and you get the royalty fee, or it could be additional sales channel where you could be, I don't know, selling BMW cars through a metaverse because, well, there's a lot of different kind of people in the world, right? So people are buying stuff on internet. So I do believe at one point you're probably not going to be going to a car shop. You just order it and it's all done. You get the tour in 3D way. You can sit in, press the buttons, etc., and you have a new car delivered in week. So.
Yeah, I think like Web3 definitely is going to provide such a new experience that it will first and foremost save on a lot of time, and I think that's one of the most valuable things we have because life is so fast and everything is getting even faster. And interesting you mentioned that like when you're actually going for a secondary market, what I read is that Starbucks, right, so the first round was very successful because people were so interested in doing those journeys, collecting stamps. But when they decided to drop the NFT sale, like on the actual marketplace, it didn't go that well. Like people were not just buying it. And so from your perspective, do you think that could be because the people rather value to be recognized for the value they get, like by, for example, performing certain tasks, doing the quiz? And in the case of AirBaltic, like how did you do it? Like how are you building that loyalty program?
Well, there's a big thing. So Web3, NFTs, crypto, there are bad actors. And that is going to be anywhere. That's in startups, and investment funds, banks, anywhere, right? So we have those kind of people everywhere. But why it's so visible in Web3 is because it was all around the media. There was
And it's
so much money going around. Everyone was buying rocks of $1 million and then all of the apes and etc. But where that leads is to a point where why the people don't want to buy, because the people usually like to speculate. So there's these two worlds, right? So there's these Web 2 and then there's the Web 3. In Web 3, everyone speculates, usually the biggest part of the people, trying to make money, and really no one cares about the community. Because if you can spend all of the money that you made and don't give anything back to the people where they bought something, well, that clearly shows they don't care. But in our case is we also understood that, okay, if we go for Web3 people who's going to be buying NFTs, but then how do you keep a loyalty program that actually gives you good benefits back to keep on being sustainable? So essentially at one point you either launch another collection and then bring that money back to the first one to keep it fueling, like others are doing, or you sell it to your own customers, same as Starbucks is doing. So why it's working for them? Because they're doing it for their customers. They bring the revenue stream in. Because the NFT program, if there's great benefits, whatever it's going to be, it cannot work on itself. Because at one point you need to have as minimum as 3, 4, 5 times the value of the first sales to be going on a secondary market where the royalties would actually cover it. But if you don't have those extra streams where people essentially, one of the things that we also would like to do, and we're working slowly on the thesis, is if we provide a lot better loyalty program where people are feeling a lot more appreciated, essentially their buying behavior changes with the company, like any loyalty program. But now we can see it with the NFTs. So we already have a database of people who owns the NFTs, how much they've flown before and how much they're flying now. So that is where we can make a point that, hey, yes, if we create this great utility for the people, that means they're going to be coming back to the company a lot more often.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a membership card, right?
Yep.
Just in this case, it's tokenized. And speaking about that, could you speak briefly about tokenization in general in blockchain, and what does it represent, and why it's kind of taking a lot of space, for example, in health industry, in real estate, in fintech, sports?
Yeah, well, Estonia is probably the best example. Their e-residency is working on blockchain, and people don't even know that it is.
Okay.
But of course, that has been in works for years, and it's very hard to pull off. So, for example, if we talk about transportation, there's similar kind of issues as e-residency had. So the GDPRs, because we need to know where people are flying, so the names, surnames, and on blockchain, so there's 3 different blockchains, public, then you have the hybrid and the private one. So we need to also comply with the GDPR, so where we're going to be going around with the data. But essentially, tokenization, it will give you a lot faster, cheaper way to either transact data or give some transactions with the people to pay for stuff. There's so many things that you could be doing. And for us, for example, if we look at, let's say, the bookings, so we pay an outside company to book the flights, and then people fly for it, right? We could be cutting costs for like 90% off. Okay. So essentially, if the companies are using it anywhere, I don't know, in housing, in healthcare, or etc., if they use it now, because they probably going to be using some outside partner who they're paying to get the service, so they could be cutting the fees and actually get more money for the company that then you can fuel back into the company, rather than just giving it out. Of course, the big problem on tokenization currently, if we talk on these big things, is that it's not very accessible for a lot of companies. Because there's a lot of groundwork to be done before they actually will want to put on whatever chain they're going to be going. Yeah. And again, you need to find out what chains you're going to be using. So which blockchain is going to be the one that actually fits you, because there's so many different ones. So there's the cheap ones, the faster ones, the bulky ones, the storing ones. So there's so many of them. And then you need to find out, hey, okay, if I want to create, let's say, my tokenized program of housing, then you'll probably need to find the best suitable one for yourself to work. And then, of course, still wait till that point where they're all going to be connected, because that is the goal. So multiple blockchains where they're all going to be connected in one big spider web around the world, like satellites are now. And then you can transact with anyone and do the stuff around in the world, anytime, any place, 24/7.
Another issue with blockchain is that they're not all not all of them are interoperable, right? So they cannot just communicate with each other. Okay, Ethereum and EVM compatible chains, they can communicate with each other. The smart contracts, however, other chains just cannot, and that is a barrier still, because you either cannot transfer your assets or you cannot to do business, and you cannot co-build a project, and that's another issue, another limitation of blockchains, at least as for now. And tokenization itself, what I've been noticing generally since kind of Web3 went mainstream, or whether some more people started talking about it, is that everyone thought like doing Web3 is for being cool, but not actually building utility or an actual business use case. And many just started, for example, either using NFTs or crypto as a payment method, but that didn't work, especially since the regulatory environment is not as friendly. And it was a way to sell, but it was not really a way to keep the people in. But I would say that there are definitely, for example, in tokenization, the good thing is that you can compile all the data, and you can either own your own data, right? Like, and you can choose who you share your data with, and also it can present some sort of like additional revenue streams where you can get certain benefit, but you can also benefit others. For example, in health industry, you can tokenize your medical data, and that medical data can be used for research purposes and hopefully help finding either a cure or establishing what are the better or worse habits for a certain condition. Another interesting use case, for example, again for the transport industry, and earlier you mentioned BMW and Porsche, is what Alfa Romeo did with their SUV. Is where you can the SUV comes with an NFT, and the NFT contains all the information about the car, the make and model, what year it was produced, or which country it was sold in, who the first owner was, and any repairs that were actually done on the car are recorded in the NFT. And basically, when you want to resell the car, it's fairly easy, and you can do it from anywhere to anywhere. And it really facilitates that relationship. But again, the problem are always regulations. And okay, so recently we had the MiCA voted. We're not sure how that's going to reflect on the future of the industry. However, one of the main issues of blockchain is actually the GDPR that you earlier mentioned. Would you please explain what is the relationship between blockchain and GDPR, and what is the limitation?
Yeah, well, there's some of the things. So a few months back, there's still MetaMask, so which is one of the most popular decentralized wallets.
Yeah.
And they launched, because they're using third-party service, they basically launched, they didn't have no choice. They need to now gather the IPs of the MetaMask users, but there is a way that you can change it to a different host, and then you won't need to share that. But essentially, you have these rules of GDPR that people should be able to delete the data if they request it, and all of the other stuff. On blockchain, so this is very questionable things. So if we use, of course, a private chain, yes, then no one's going to have an access, only the few, governments or companies who actually need to have that access, and then they'll be able to edit it. But there are already ways how you could be doing. So basically, on blockchain, you have two ways where you could be going. So off-chain and then on the chain. So on the chain, everyone's going to be able to see what's happening. And off the chain, you'll be able to share these data around to who you need to do. And then only put the confirmation that, yes, this data that was stored in there is correct one, and now it could be going. But again, you also need to be deleting the data, which is very, very hard. But there are a few oracles working with some cool features where you'll be able to mask it out and just leave it in the blocks so it disappears, so people don't have an access. But again, it's only a visionary way how they could be pulling it off. But that is still a problem, and MiCA is also partly covering that point of view of GDPRs and how you could be doing stuff. So.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said because like blockchain is all about owning your own data, but also one of its main features is that immutability. But on the other hand, you want to own your data and you want to choose whether you want to keep storing the data on chain or not. And blockchain doesn't really allow you to delete it. So, as you said, I'm sure there's going to be quite creative solutions to mitigate that. I read that some are happening in this space, but I think what the issue is there are like so many new solutions that are emerging, and then you will be like, well, which one do I use, and which one will be actually recognized by the regulators to be like, okay, so we are okay with you using this, and then what you mentioned, the private blockchain is great, but private blockchains are not really what blockchain is about. So I think the industry is going through very, very interesting times. And would you share, like, what do you think when we look at the industry now, what the industry was, let's say, a year or two ago? What could the industry be in, let's say, the most of the year from now, since it's changing so rapidly?
I do believe, well, because MiCA is now out, so the regulation of the crypto, and everyone has a chance in 18 months to apply for the new rules. But I do believe, even though, yes, there are some interesting rules in there and there's some great stuff in there, I do believe that this is still the first big step for crypto. Because this is actually the groundwork of the laws that's going to be made in 5, 10, 7, whatever years, right? How it will adapt, I don't know. We'll see, hopefully in a good way. But where I see the future, let's say next year, so a year from now, a lot more of these dynamic NFTs. So what you mentioned before, Alfa Romeo. So essentially either in housing or cars or even in aviation or anywhere else, essentially people will have a chance to create a new asset, which is their loyalty. So time and money, your loyalty asset. And what that means is that through dynamic NFTs, so which is already the next level of the NFTs, you'll be able to change these data. And essentially at one point, you're going to have a card where you can just keep on leveling it up to reach, I don't know, a level 40, 50, or whatever you want to call it. But because these data are changing, you could be leveling it up. And then at one point, you can be transferring it away or, again, selling it to someone else. But with these NFTs, another big thing, the partnerships through the tokens with different kind of companies. I do believe that is going to be a very, very easy way to pull off extra utilities for the holders themselves. But if we talk in next year, my view is very, very, very simple. Let's say average Joe doesn't need to care about blockchain. He doesn't need to care about Web3. He doesn't need to care about anything. It's the same like people drive cars. Yeah, you don't know how the engine works. So there's only a few people who knows how it actually works, and but you still use the thing. And the same is with Web3. Will we this year go to a place where it's easy to use, 3 clicks, and you have it, and you don't even know that it is on blockchain or it's somewhere else, and you're still using it? Will we go there? I doubt it in 1 year that we're going to be going there, but overall, if I'm looking 2 years back, we have advanced ginormously. With all of the big companies coming in, of course, Starbucks, they're leading the way from one of the biggest companies in the world, and actually have integrated the wallets, and people don't even know that they're actually answering questions about coffee. They don't even know what is an NFT. Same with Reddit. Like 2.5 million NFTs issued, 1 million more holders. They never knew that that's an NFT till they told them that's an NFT. But and that is also one of the biggest problems currently. So if we can fix that problem, then literally everyone will be using these kind of services. The question is how, of course, but that is where the big mass adoption shift will happen.
That's very true. I think the problem with blockchain is that initially you had just a bunch of developers, and it was very, an environment for very techy people. But as the industry grew, you started having more and more people from different areas, and not as techy, but the user phase, the front end, like it didn't really change. You have to go through so many steps just to create a simple account, and sometimes you have your resources online to actually learn how to do it, but you don't want to do that. Like, when you're opening an account for anything new in Web2, you don't really have to, go in and look for a manual on how to do it because it's very easy to do it. But in Web3, you're like scratching the head and be like, okay, so what do I do next, right? Like, am I gonna forget something and I'm gonna miss something and I'm gonna lose something? So it can be a bit tricky for people who are just not in the industry as much and do not care about the tech, right? They want to use the product.
I can add on that one also. There's a very big thing for from the customer side. So essentially, with the proper Web3, which is the centralized wallets, where you are responsible for your assets and the wallet, this is a problem in a different level already. Why? Because it's a change of your mind.
Exactly.
That, hey, I can, anytime I want or something happens, I can call my bank and they're going to sort everything out, right? Or I can call a company, they're going to sort everything out. Once we go to the stage where you are the one responsible for everything what's in your wallet or where you connect it or where you use it, that is an extra problem for the customer. Because now I need to think, where did I store my big password to retrieve the wallets? Now I need to think where I'm connecting it. A lot of these liabilities are being set for the customer with the decentralized way. So if we can find, of course there's solutions where you could also be the key holder and then there's the company, for example, AirBaltic could be the key holder and then the middleman. There we could find a solution where we can also give you help if it's really, really needed. But again, it's going away from decentralization. So we're actually fighting, all of the blockchain is fighting a lot bigger thing, which is change of the mindset.
Yes,
To start going into, hey, this is mine and now I'm going to be the one who's responsible for my finances.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to show you my Planey, right? Like, and I forgot the password to the AirBaltic. So I had to reset it to show you. So yeah, and just like a quick final words, what do you think? What are some of the challenges, that the brands are facing and will be facing very soon, like as they start getting into the industry?
Well, firstly, I do believe the infrastructure of the brand itself inside from IT perspective, right? So essentially, it really depends on how big of a company you are. But you could come to a point where, yes, we do want to implement X, Y, and Z, but you are not in-house, you're not ready to actually put this tech on. So that is one of the big things. And then, of course, how do you, because end of the day, all of these things are experimental, right? So like we don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10 years, maybe there's going to be different NFTs that everyone would like to have. But you need to, in some kind of way, you need to get those knowledge into the company. So what that means is like either through presentations and open it up for new possibilities, but in the same time not saying, hey, let's change everything. Because if I go to someone and say like, hey, okay, I want to now change all of the maintenance paperwork on databases, let's put it on there, they're going to say no. Because they already understand that's unreal. But if you go into companies and go, hey, we could be creating cool stuff like X, Y, and Z, and then go with a proposal, that's completely different. Because again, all of the people who's been around the media and etc., the only things they hear is that crypto is bad. Last year in Latvia alone, there was 3, 4 articles, and everything was about Luna, Celsius, FTX. Like, of course, the brands is not going to be coming in. And this is also a problem for the brands. Like if you are kind of interested into Web3 and then you think, okay, where can I find this information? And you go in the media and you see everything is bad, you're going to be thinking, no, this is the worst thing. But maybe, essentially, that is the best thing that your product could be having, which could open these new revenue streams, better experience, satisfaction, retention, PR, like all of these things it could be bringing to that kind of level. But again, of course, how do you enter it? Like, what is the value proposition of what you want to be creating and how you're going to be delivering it in a seamless user-face experience?
It goes back to that utility, creating the value for the user. Great, thank you so much. Do you maybe have a question from the audience? Okay. Thank you so much again. It was lovely talking to you. And, well, I do hope the brands start working more and more on the utility and the Web3 as Web3 gets more expansion and gets back the good name. Not just the FTX and all the crashes that we had recently.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.